That brings us to the report of the superintendent.
In some ways, I'm glad I don't have to
I know,
follow.
follow
Act to follow. However, tonight we start off with something very interesting on a very serious topic. And this evening, I asked our school resource officer, who's with the Sandwich Police Department and does great work for us as our SRO. And that's Krista Cabral. Officer Cabral is here to talk to the school committee, do a presentation about a program called ALICE. And I've asked her to do this. She's already done some training. She'll tell you about this. It really represents a change in one of our key protocols for dealing with issues if we were to have an armed intruder, something that we hope would never happen, but something I would want to assure the school committee and parents that it is something that we prepare for. So I'm going to turn it over to Officer Cabral.
Hi, it's good to see you all. I'm Officer Krista Cabral, School Resource Officer for Sandwich Police Department in conjunction with Sandwich Public Schools. ALICE is a nationally recognized program that provides option-based, proactive, strategic survival strategies. ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. These options do not have to happen in any particular order. Up until ALICE, our lockdown protocols consisted of an announcement of a lockdown with the entire school quietly hiding in classrooms or offices, waiting for help to arrive. This old lockdown model was based on accountability, whereas ALICE is based on survivability. In ALICE training, we share all known information. This allows for active decision-making to take place. We prepare for different possible scenarios, including barricading in place, evacuating if possible, and as a last resort, techniques to counter an attack. Situations of this nature are fluid and ever-changing. With ALICE, people are given the ability to act in their best interest with the real-time information that they are receiving or personally witnessing. Many current critical incidents have proven that ALICE protocols are saving lives. Virginia Tech, Sandy Hook, and most recently Marysville all had higher survivability rates due to people proactively and courageously taking action. ALICE was founded by Greg Crane. He has over 25 years of law enforcement experience, as well as some SWAT team experience, and his wife, Lisa, who was a high school principal. They developed ALICE in an attempt to change the passive lockdown system to an active system to increase survivability. Nationally, over 900 organizations, over 100 people, 1 million people have adopted ALICE, schools and businesses alike. Locally in Massachusetts, 130 K through 12 and 150 law enforcement agencies are active with ALICE. Many school districts in our area, such as Eastham, Nauset, Harwich, and Upper Cape Tech, are currently using ALICE as their lockdown protocol. Many more districts are in the process of implementing ALICE as we speak. Further, some districts have implemented some parts of ALICE or have used other names for the protocol that is still ALICE-based. Governor Deval Patrick has recommended ALICE as part of his recommendations for the Massachusetts Task Force report on school safety and security. This report was released over this past summer. With the support of Chief Wack, I received ALICE instructor training last winter. I have joined a network of ALICE instructors who travel from district to district assisting with the training of ALICE in area schools. I presented ALICE to our school safety committee last spring, and the decision was made with the support of Dr. Canfield to implement it here in Sandwich Public Schools. Prevention of a school tragedy has always been our primary goal. We have many practices in place in an attempt to prevent an incident. Awareness of our surroundings is key in preventing or stopping an incident. In the event of an active shooter incident, preparedness and practice of these protocols will ensure that should such a tragedy occur, that we'll be as ready as possible to encounter it. At this time, grades 7 through 12 faculty and staff at Sandwich High School and STEM Academy have been trained. All nursing staff in the district and wing school grades K through 6 faculty and staff have been trained. In the next couple weeks, Forestdale and Oak Ridge schools will receive their training. The training has been well received and feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. After all faculty training is complete, student assemblies will be held to assist in presenting ALICE to students. Age appropriateness is taken into consideration, and elementary students, grades K through 6, will be using age-appropriate books with in-classroom instruction to explain the lockdown procedures to them. Great care is taken, as it always has been, in order not to scare or confuse any young students. As always, Sandwich Public Schools, in a collaborated effort with Sandwich Police and Sandwich Fire, strive to make Sandwich schools safe. The Safety Committee is continually working proactively to ensure that our schools are safe. Our bird team members are dedicated volunteers who have done a tremendous job with assisting school administration and first responders. Now with the ALICE, the rest of our school community will be able to proactively participate in saving lives. So that's pretty much an overview of ALICE, and I'm really excited about it. When I went to training, they asked the law enforcement personnel who were there, what we would tell our own children. And I have to say, I cannot in good faith tell any teacher or student to do anything different than I would want my own children to do. My kids have gone through the system, and I have one more that's on the way through the system. Wholeheartedly buy into this, and I'm really excited to complete the training process.
Any questions?
Is there,
Go ahead.
is there like a list of what's involved in the training, a manual, a booklet, or is that proprietary?
I do a presentation,
Yeah.
usually a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And then we do 4 scenarios that are hands-on. And
Okay.
it's the old practice that we do to show the difference. And then we go into a barricade mode where we teach them to utilize their classrooms and maybe think differently, be more aware of their surroundings. We then do a scenario that is a counter-type scenario. So if that door is breached by an intruder, in a last-case scenario, what you could possibly do to try to save yourself, and then an escape or evacuation. And really, this is something that's not just school-based. I'm hoping that this training will be taken out into the community as well, because these incidents happen not only in schools, but being aware of our surroundings, what we have to utilize, maybe being more prepared by bringing some things into the classroom, the setup of the classroom. There's a lot of awareness of it, and there is some ambivalence I see when I have all the faculty together. However, they are extremely empowered when they're done with the training, and the thought process is completely different, and that's where we need to be right now.
The training itself for the faculty, is this done at the beginning of every school year?
It will be for new staff. Right now, we're going through and getting everybody trained. I'm also going to be training any cafeteria workers. Janitorial staff's been involved in it. School security officers have been involved. Anybody who is regularly in the school. Each year, I will make sure that any new staff will be trained as well. If there are any updates that come along, I would make sure that I pass that along. It's taken a long time because there's only so many days that I have access to the faculty. And Dr. Canfield allowed me to have some of the October 10th Professional Development Day. So I took a 3-hour block of that day and did the 7 through 12. And now I'm going individually to the rest of the school community.
Do you think it's something that they should be trained on at the beginning of every school year, just to keep it fresh? Or?
We could possibly. It doesn't really change.
Right.
What I've also offered is if any teachers or anybody that's been trained has specific concerns, or they'd like me to come and evaluate their classroom, I'm more than happy to do that. So right now I'm compiling a list of people who maybe would like a little bit of one-on-one, or, hey, I have a really difficult classroom. Can you come in and strategically look at this? We talk about people's natural tendencies, fight, flight, or freeze, and knowing yourself, and knowing that maybe if you're somebody who tends to freeze, maybe you can team up with somebody who's in the classroom next to you. Again, it's awareness, who's in the classroom next to me. There's so many different scenarios, it's hard to really pinpoint for everything. Some teachers have students that are mobility impaired. Barricade may be an only option for them, so we want to make sure that they're super strength is to have the ability to barricade extremely well. It's just so many, I mean, it is ever-changing. It's difficult this year because teachers are now changing classrooms, so they have to make sure that they're aware of whatever classrooms that they might be in.
How do we handle substitutes that come and go that aren't around?
The regular substitutes, it will eventually be in our protocol, like the red books that we have. And what we have right now is when they sign in and they get the badge for the sign-in, the instructions, like for lockdown, are on the back of that. We will do something like that. Regular full-time people that are here for like permanent substitute positions would be trained. And I can do that one-on-one, as needed.
So, the standard model of stay in place and lockdown, fire drill, those are all still things that are being practiced and we're just adding some pieces to it?
Basically, it's an enhanced lockdown system.
Yeah, okay.
We just want to make sure that people are empowered to make the best decision that they can with the information that they have. When you simply say lockdown, lockdown, and we don't know what's going on, one, fear of the unknown is huge. And allowing people to make decisions, if I have an active shooter in the cafeteria, certainly, the STEM Academy could attempt to evacuate. And again, it's easy to account for, terrible to say, but people that have been killed. And I much rather worry about finding them scattered, into the neighborhood or at a rally point than to have to account in the opposite direction. It's difficult to talk about, but in the day and age that we live in, this is something that is 100% necessary to implement.
Another question. I think this is great. I'm very happy to see that we're being proactive in Sandwich and empowering our teachers and staff in any way that we can. Training, do you have specific training dates? If any one of us wanted to...
I will have training dates for Forestdale and Oak Ridge. If you would like to come to that, I could definitely extend an invitation.
Yeah.
What I'm doing with them is I'm doing a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that I have, and then we have question and answer session. And then collectively, because I can only use their faculty meeting days, which is every other Tuesday, for an hour. So once they've all had that presentation, I will then collectively gather them at one school and we'll go through the 4 scenarios. I have that network of people that come out to help, so I can't have them come out like they did on October 10th individually.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we do like groups of 20 in a classroom, and then they have an ALICE instructor there with them, and I want to make sure that that's not rushed and that they have plenty of time to, assess the classroom and ask the questions, go through the drill, and then we debrief after each drill. Okay, so how did that go? How did you feel? What could we have done better? And I don't want that rushed. So that would probably be the best time to come and observe.
Yeah, I would love to.
Because the PowerPoint presentation is one thing, and I could even forward that to you, but to come and see it in action, and that's where the empowerment comes to the staff, because they're actually hands-on. And if there are any staff members that do not wish to participate in the drill, we do put a safety area up, and they are able to observe. And I full-heartedly believe that they are able to gain a lot of knowledge just from watching it, just from seeing it play out. So you're more than welcome to attend that. The administration from Sandwich Police have been there. Some fire personnel have been there just to observe.
Yeah, I'd be interested in knowing when that was.
Okay.
If you just get the date, I'm sure Dr. Canfield will know.
And I know even just engaging in the conversation about it, it really starts to change your own mindset about how you view things, and so that for many of us to realize that...
Not me, I'm a fight.
Well, I don't know. But I mean, when we think about, how 9/11 really changed the world for all of us, I know when I get on an airplane to fly now, I think very differently. I think there was that more of a passive approach that just sit tight, it's going to be one thing. But I think now we've seen efforts that have been made where passengers themselves realize
Taking a
that
proactive
I
approach
can actually...
to their safety.
Right. So.
And awareness is so key to this, because those are valuable seconds. And what we're seeing is civilians are the ones that are able to stop the situation prior to, the 4 to 5 minutes. We're lucky we have that SRO position, but I'm shared with 4 campuses. So I may or may not be on campus. If I am on campus, then I'm engaged in that threat right away. But, flooding the 911 system and having that, open communication as to what's going on allows us to get fed information as first responders from the department responding, to get mutual aid coming in, and it's valuable seconds when we're sharing that information. Simply telling them it's a lockdown, they have no idea what's going on. So this is real-time information that's acted on. It's really a great program.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. The next item on the list is really a discussion about schedule.
Yay,
for
Merry
budget-
Christmas.
For budget FY16, and I just want to take a moment to explain the handouts. Again, the school committee meetings are school committee meetings, and they're meetings that as superintendent, I do my best to attend. I think my attendance has been generally very good, but it's really up to the committee to set the dates. And so what I wanted to talk to you about tonight is some thoughts about a different approach to the budget this year. And it began in part because I had some conversation with different town leaders, from the selectmen to finance committee, about what they would like to see differently this year. And as I began adding up the potential for the number of meetings, it got to a point where I thought this will be virtually undoable for us. We have a tremendous amount of planning to do that is active. There's work that is ongoing virtually on a daily basis on the reorganization plans for next year. We have our RBTs are functioning. There's a lot that's going into this, and so our feeling was we need to look at how we might be able to condense some of the budget process this year. And so I've been working with Michelle Austin, our Director of Finance and Business Operations, and then also with Joan Calkins, who has a lot of materials that we've used in the past. So bringing that together, getting that out to all of the administrators who have a piece of this budget, the school principals, the athletic administrator, Matt Bridges for pupil services, and Alan Hall for facilities. So getting all this information out and getting it back in, and with a goal to complete our initial review that Michelle and I do, and working with all the folks who submit to us, to do some paring down, because everybody comes with their dreams and their hopes, and it comes down to what do you need to sustain the current program, what are the things that are on your wish list that you'd love to have, and often we don't get to those wish lists, but they're important for us to know and to note as time goes forward. So we go through that initial pairing. Then what we would plan to do is to actually have a budget document that would be a draft. It would be the superintendent's recommended budget, and it would be coming to you before the end of December, perhaps around the 20th.
Well, I'd like to try to get a first draft to you, like either sent out to you or something, before Christmas.
Oh, yay.
Yay! Merry
Ho, ho,
Christmas! Something for everybody's stocking. But you need time,
somewhere else.
but you need time to look at
Oh,
it for a week or so
yeah.
before we have our first meeting,
So then, what you'll see on this front sheet, you have business meetings on December 3rd and 17th.
Yep.
Budget really, in a sense, I mean, we've already obviously started on some of the work in compliance with some changes that were in the charter that I've mentioned in previous meetings. But December 4th is scheduled as a tri-board meeting for budget guidance, and that would be at Town Hall. It would be the selectmen, the school committee, and the finance committee. Then from there, if we look at the month of January, and we take, there are 4 Wednesdays, because one of the challenges this year is we come back later. We come back
Yes.
on Monday the 5th.
Yeah.
And so you can see the 7th, 14, 21, and 28. We know that our tendency, and I think it's the right thing to do, is to vote the budget to adopt what then becomes the school committee's recommended budget to go forward, and to have that vote on the 28th. The budget that we submit has to be delivered to Town Hall by February 1. So the 28th would be that Wednesday if we plan to vote the budget. Then backing up to the 21st is when you'd want to have the public hearing, give yourself some time to reflect on what you hear from any of the public who choose to come to speak to the budget. We know that from the past experience, that has not been a lot of people, and it tends to not be a very long period of time, but one can never tell from one year to the next. So I believe last year, we didn't actually, we
I don't
met
think we
first,
had
and
anybody.
we didn't have anyone, but what we did is we met as a committee, talked, did a little wrap-up on the budget, and I believe we scheduled the public hearing for a little bit later in the meeting, whether it was 7:30 or 8 o'clock, something
Yeah.
like that, 8
Yep.
o'clock. So then if you look at the 7th and the 14th, right now, I've just got it as superintendent's recommended budget workshop begins, and the 14th it begins. It's not a lot of time. You do have the option of meeting more than once in a week. If you wanted to schedule 2 meetings in a week, that's something that you could do. We should also consider snow dates, what you want to do with that. And then the other thought that came about, and I just want to again share with you, I was contacted by the chair and vice chair of the finance committee. And, I was concerned about their initial request of reserving three meetings with the finance committee. And I said, well, look, is there a different approach? And we started talking about, like in the past, there apparently was a combined meeting. I'm told it was held up at Oak Crest Cove. And so it's happened in the past. I know in my time here, I invited the finance committee to come. I think we had 1 or 2 that came.
Yeah, last year.
What I have from the chair and vice chair of the finance committee is that they would make a concerted effort to get all of the finance committee to come and join us in a combined meeting where we would do as we did last year that seemed to be favorable with the committee, which was to walk through the budget and not so much going line by line. If a line's got $100 in it, we're not going to worry about that. But the main thing we focused on were any lines where there was a significant bump up in the budget. You're going to see the whole thing anyway, and so you can ask about anything we don't address, but it would be any lines where there's a significant change of the budget, either up or down. And then we would, at the end of each section, we can stop, we can take questions from the committee, we can take questions from the finance committee. It was the contention of the chair and the vice chair of the finance committee that if we can do this together, and if they all come and we commit to this, that they might not actually feel a need to have them come before them at all. Or if so, it might be for a couple of questions that have, because I think we've all had that experience that you finish a workshop and then you're mulling things over on the way home or the next day, and you think of something you wish you had asked. So if we needed to do 1 additional meeting, that's about what it would be. And we all agreed that it's more effective when we receive questions in writing, because it gives us the time to prepare the response very thoughtfully, and also to look to provide any backup information that would be helpful for those who are charged with responsibility under the charter to engage in vetting the town and school budget to truly understand, where we are. So
So what meeting are you thinking of having them come to? Are you talking about in January?
Well,
Having them come to a
what we
meeting
thought
in
was what we thought was possibly to have them come to all, you know, and I think that's, I don't know that they're going to want to come to all, but that's kind of where the discussion was. What I did is, you know, just for your information on this sheet, you'll see, and I meant to print this in color and hit the wrong button. But anyway, the school vacation red, you can tell because it's a little more faded, but if you look, for instance, at the Board of Selectmen Thursdays, I just noted all of the Thursdays in February, March, and April that are potentially meeting dates for the selectmen. The lighter shades, the 19th, and it's interesting whether, and the 19th of February, 19th of March, and the 19th of February and the 23rd of March are school vacations, and I don't like us, I don't want to get engaged in hearings if we don't have our full complement of administration, staff, and frankly, our parents need to be here as well, so that they don't feel disenfranchised by the conversation that may be going on. And the Finance Committee is the next set of dates. Those are all the Tuesdays, February, March, and April, and you'll see February 17 and April 21 are during school vacations. So this is something I had, that I had the meeting with Michelle, myself, Bud Dunham, and then the chair and vice chair, Jean Perini and Linnell Brunman, as we went through this. And I noted town meeting is the 4th of May. So you can see that. I attached to this document tonight a copy of our school calendar, and I leave it there. You can either take some time now to discuss it or reflect on it, and when we come together at the meeting on November 19th, we really should hopefully set the calendar at that point in time, the snow dates, and decide if you want to do more than one meeting during the month. But also, I'd like to get a sense of how the committee feels about the idea of doing a joint meeting with the Finance Committee. We've talked about location. Unfortunately, as good as the video and sound production is in this studio, it's not practical to host the size of this meeting. We talked, frankly, about the location. I can tell you that they would be willing to come and do this in the library at the high school. It would have to be taped. We've had, and Joan Calkins reached out to Paula Johnson to talk about that. So we have a few things we need to work out, but they would, you know, if they were taped, they could be posted the next day. If we do it at Town Hall, it's darker and it's just not as pleasant. We'd like to actually, if we're going to do this, we'd really like to do it in a very collegial fashion.
And bring in dinner.
With everyone. Can't afford dinner, but I will talk to Whitson's about at least providing some coffee in, because we want to be very nice hosts and hopefully encourage them to sit with us and go through this. So I'll stop there. Any thoughts or questions?
Go ahead, Nancy.
So you're talking about meeting with the Finance Committee after we've already approved the budget and not before?
No, actually doing it before.
Because the dates are all after we have to submit.
Right.
No, those are
That's
just,
if they want
that's when
another
they
meeting.
meet,
If they
if
want
they
another
want
meeting.
us to come
Okay.
there. But they're saying if they were to participate with you, now they know, they have no vote on the budget. That's your vote that occurs at the end of January. They know that. But at least they would have had the opportunity to hear the conversation, understand the questions, even to be able to ask some of their own. I figured, why not? The more people that, you know, look at this and raise the questions, the more open and transparent that process becomes. So that was really that was the thought. But obviously, both Jean Perini and Linnell have to also have a conversation with the whole Finance Committee to be sure that they can get them all to be willing to do this. But I follow their meetings. If I don't attend a Selectmen or Finance Committee meeting, I do watch them. And so I have a sense of what they're looking for, and what they're hoping will be different from prior years. And they're looking for a much more collegial relationship. We're all in this together. It's the town's money, and we need to do our best to be sure that we accomplish what we need to for our responsibility, which is the children, and also recognize limitations that the town may have. So.
Go ahead,
I
Ms.
have just a concern about, and it's a little bit of an aside, by having the first 2 meetings in January as workshops, that means we won't have a business meeting for 5 weeks. Can we just have a business meeting, what the only agenda item would be the budget and maybe warrants or anything? I mean, I just have a concern we might need to vote something.
Yeah, we
and
can
that's a
still
lot.
add that.
You can always add more meetings. In fact, I would think you probably want to, with all of the planning that we have going on, and we have the reorganization planning teams, the RPTs. In fact, the meeting for Forestdale is tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock in Forestdale. We had one last week, which was Oak Ridge, and basically it was just reporting out on the visitations that we had. It's hard to predict what we're going to want to present to you or that you're going to want to know about in January, but I would guess that you're probably going to want to have an additional business meeting or two. Just depends on everyone's availability.
So we might be looking at multiple meetings in a week.
Well, I think as far as if there's anything that needs to be, we call it a workshop because of the setting, but that doesn't mean on the agenda we can't approve warrants or whatnot. If there's a presentation that needs to happen, then, instead of calling it a budget workshop, we'd have a business meeting and dedicate most of the meeting to the budget. If there's something that needs to be
Sure.
presented. But I guess we won't know that
Right.
until we get closer to those dates, So I think we could still meet those needs without adding a second night, because some years, and it's happened, where we've needed the next night as a snow day, a couple of times in January. So, historically, we've had the business meeting, not the business meeting, the workshop meeting or business meeting, whatever it is, on Wednesday night, and the Thursday night has always been reserved for snow days. So I would hesitate to change that, because we can't predict not getting
Right.
snow.
It's not gonna
If you
snow.
mention that S word one more time, I'm gonna slap you.
Could be worse, could be in Maine right now.
So I would, that,
Just do a snow day for each meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next day, just like we did last.
And I was
just-
trying to recall
right.
what we did last year, because if we're going to do this with the finance committee, I don't know whether, obviously if you plan for Wednesday, normally you think, well, if you get snow, do you make it that Thursday?
Yeah.
But you
Yes,
have to
that's what
also
we do.
realize that the selectmen would be meeting in some cases would be meeting the next day, but they don't really get involved with our budget until after we deliver it to town hall, which would be in the month of February. So if you wanted to say for any of the workshops on Wednesdays, that if it snowed out, Thursday's the snow day.
And that's exactly what we did last
what we
year.
did.
Yeah, the last few years anyway. I have no problem with anybody that wants to come to our budget workshop meetings or our budget meetings. I think as a school committee member, I think I would like the opportunity to go through the budget and ask our questions and kind of have things corrected by the school committee before we
Good point.
before we invite questions or comments from the outside. I think that we kind of have, that's kind of our ownership, it's our budget, we have to ultimately vote on it. That's not to say that anybody that wants to come isn't welcome to come, ask their own questions, either to the school committee or the administration, but I think that we really should have the opportunity to vet it first,
Which really only gives us the 7th.
Yeah.
We would invite them the 14th. because the next week is a public hearing. So maybe, I mean, we would have just gotten it over Christmas vacations, it's just not a lot of Wednesdays.
Yeah, it's really up to you. I did, I can tell you that in the meeting that I had with Bud Dunham and with Jean and with Manel, everyone understood that the role and the responsibility and the authority of the school committee when it comes to the budget and decisions. They understand that their support for our budget can make the difference as to whether or not at town meeting the town votes to give us the money we're asking for. They can't tell us how to spend it. They all know that. But their support for us is predicated on their understanding of why we need what we say we need. I mean, that would be true for the selectmen as well. So, to me, it may be valuable to do that, but I also want to be clear with the committee that they understood that if the committee wants to do something different than what I'm proposing, that's the prerogative of the committee.
Well, I think it would be prudent to book dates with the finance committee now, because at least for the negotiation team, if we already know that we have, say, the 3rd and the 10th after the,
That's a good point.
right, I mean, I know last year it was, we were involved in negotiations with multiple groups, and, we had set aside specific date with finance committee, and then it was like, well, we need you to come back, and we were already booked.
Right.
And for us with the negotiations, there's a lot of
Moving
people's
parts.
schedules that are involved. It's not like we can just drop it. So I think it makes sense, that we say, okay, the 3rd and the 10th, we'll save those 2 dates, and we won't put anything on the negotiation calendar. So that way, if the finance committee if all those members can't make it to one of our meetings, then we have the opportunity to present the school committee's budget at that point. Because at that point, it'll be the school committee's recommended budget.
Okay, I guess I need direction as to, so that I can understand what you want me to say to the finance committee. Come on 2 dates, or do we want to specify the dates? I mean, I'd like it to be an invitation, I can't direct them.
I think that they should do whatever they like.
Well, whatever they like, maybe that we come before them
I think
2 or
January
3
7th
times.
would be really early,
Yeah.
Okay.
but 21st is the public hearing, that's late, so it really locks us into, if that's our meeting between the 14th. Now, we're still gonna be going through probably
Right.
sections we
Yes.
haven't really seen before.
Mhm.
So, as long as they understand that.
Maybe you should let them come to any workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe they should ask their questions on the 14th or the 21st, or submit their questions for answering on that day.
They can
And
submit at any time, right?
they can.
Yeah, they've always done it after we've
After
given
it's
them,
been
after it's been voted on
presented.
by the school committee, but maybe.
But we're trying to be proactive.
Right,
This time.
Right, this might be a better arrangement. Let me talk to them and see if
Okay.
this
Okay.
would make more sense, and then we just, if we do snow dates as being the Thursday after.
Yeah, for each of the ones in January.
But I guess what I would say is if from their perspective, if they don't think they can get everybody on the finance committee to come to one of those workshops, and I'm not sure what the charter says. The charter says we have to have the budget approved to the selectmen by February
February
1st. And then we ultimately go and present to the finance committee. So wouldn't we still need to do that?
Well, they were saying if they could go to these meetings and they could see the whole process and understand our numbers, maybe we wouldn't have to do that.
Okay.
Because we are one of several departments.
Oh, I know, I
So
understand.
it really,
Yep.
so it just depends on, there's some departments they want to see more than others. And granted, ours is one they want to see because we are a very large budget. the largest, in the town. But let me see what I can do. I'll have a conversation.
Okay.
See if I'll come back to you with something.
Any other questions on that piece? Okay, moving on.
Okay, the other thing I put on the agenda was just the RPT update, because going forward, we really should be seeing this on the agenda. I'm not saying every meeting, but on a fairly regular basis, we should be keeping the school committee and thereby the public aware of the work that is going on in the preparation for next year. I can't say enough about the importance or the recommendation of following what we're doing through Sandwich Learns Together. But also the RPTs have been set up. There was an initial meeting with both groups and it went very well. People we went through introductions. And people were asked why they had chosen to serve, and it was really very positive, very upbeat, very exciting. Then we split into the two groups so that Mark Smith, as principal of Forestdale, is leading the RPT for Forestdale, and Trish Hill is leading the RPT for Oak Ridge. I do want to make it clear that all of this is a team effort. So there's far more involved than just the two that are leading, but I know it's important for the parents and important to the parents that the person they see taking the lead is in fact the principal from the school. But certainly, our coordinators, Maureen Wicklund, Claire Brady, Deb Landry has been very much a part of what we've been doing, along with Matt Bridges, Marilyn Brontis, and I'm sure I would be forgetting someone, but it's very much a team effort, and the progress has been really good. We did one visitation, had one visitation day to two different districts, and that was Duxbury and also to East Bridgewater. And they were chosen because they have similar models to what we had proposed. It was interesting because Duxbury has had that model for probably at least 20 years. And for East Bridgewater, it's pretty new for them, so it was interesting to ask questions and contrast one against the other. There is another visitation that is set for this coming Monday to Mansfield, and again to take a look at their organization, and so that's being set up. This one I'm not able to attend. I asked Mrs. Crossman if she would be able to attend in my place, and she's agreed to do that, and I thank her for that. And but it has been really valuable to hear and see the enthusiasm of the parents and the staff that are involved, because we have teacher and staff representation on these visitations. It's also very interesting, as we've asked many questions and many responses, one of the things I wanted to focus on tonight is that if you've been following the news here on Cape Cod, there's a lot of talk here, as there is nationally, about the research on a later start for high school. And so that actually came up when we had the debriefing session at Oak Ridge with the parents and everyone who had been on that visitation to Duxbury. And it was interesting because there was an article in the Cape Cod Times yesterday morning that also has some quotes from Tom Conrad, who's a colleague of Dr. Boris. He's the principal at Nauset Regional High School. And they went to a late start, I'm looking at Dr. Boris, 2-3 years ago, somewhere.
Correct.
About that.
8:35 they start.
So yes, 8:35, and he presents some data in that article about the very significant reduction in failures, reduction in tardiness, as well as a lot of other student issues around substance abuse, those kinds of things. And so the article is very well presented, and a lot of this data has been presented pretty well nationally. So that is the conversation, and it is conversation that we will need to also have as a school committee going forward, and looking for ways to engage our parents to help them understand what the options are. One of the things I found really intriguing personally when when we were at Duxbury. And I asked them about how they do this and the structure, because they run a 3-tiered bus system, as we will next year. And 3 tiers is most common, and it used to be just logically, it was high school, middle school, elementary. But a lot of districts have gotten creative as to how they structure that, and Duxbury actually has their 3-6 school begin first, and their start time is at 7:30, and 45 minutes later, the high school and middle school start, so that would be 8:15, and then 9 o'clock starts their primary school. So we really found that intriguing. If you followed the meetings that were held in Falmouth and Barnstable, there's a lot of understanding and support for the late start. There's also the recognition that it does have an impact on families with the 3-6, even though the research is pretty clear that it's actually good for those kids, but it's harder for parents who have to get up earlier, get organized earlier to get the kids out the door. But it would be my contention that it's more about helping kids to be successful and achieve academically and socially than it is about convenience. And I'm not knocking that, because I've been a parent myself, and there were times that I had to throw on sweatpants or jeans, and because, oh my, we're running a little bit late. In fact, in Tom Conrad's comments in the Times, he mentioned that while there was all of this improvement for the high school, there was an increase in tardiness in the elementary grade, until the system resettled itself and people got used to the new routines. So that is something to think about. The other thing that is of significance is that we're aware that there are some other districts too that have looked at the issue of having the primary school starting as the last tier, generally 9 o'clock. What is the challenges that it proposes for a district that runs a 6.5-hour student day is that there's a period of time where you're really transporting kids and dropping them off potentially in the dark. Now, some districts deal with that where parents just say, not working for me, I'll drive my child to and from school. But there are some that have, while the contract would call for the teacher workday to be the same, but in some districts, they go with a shorter primary day. Instead of 6.5 hours, they go with a 6-hour day. And they use that half an hour time in very constructive ways for teachers to collaborate, to look at student work, to look at intervention needs with individual students, and can get very creative. And I'm sure there's a lot more that could be added to that formula to make it a very productive day. And so the question is it permissible within state regulations on length of day, et cetera? And yes, it is. If we were to shorten and go from a 6.5 to a 6-hour day, that would not be an issue. But obviously, I just wanted to introduce that thought, get people thinking about it, certainly to get parents talking about it. Some will think it's a great idea, others will feel otherwise. And ultimately, it'll come down to a discussion here and a decision within the school committee. And I apologize for doing this yet again to you, but it is something, it's something that we really should.
Note this day on the calendar that this topic was mentioned.
Well, you know,
So when we go ahead and vote on it, 3 years from now.
well, you know, because the other reality, and I do say this, and I don't want to sound like a broken record when I say to people that you know, for us, our work is really all about the children.
Yes.
And we've got to, it's about walking the talk. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to make the decision and do it. Sometimes that decision is popular, other times it is not. But I know my rule of thumb is I would only want for everyone's child what I would wish for my own, or now for my own grandkids. And that's my rule of thumb. And So there's more to being a superintendent than just having engaged in a lot of studies and a lot of research. It's also having a heart that drives you to do the right thing and to think as a parent would think. And so I do recognize that not every parent's going to agree with the thinking, but it is something that has pretty strong research behind it.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So you guys are, is the RPT based on their visits with other schools? This is something that you're seeing in the other schools?
What we're seeing has to do with the late
Yeah,
start.
okay.
But when you do that late start, it then
Impacts the
it
other.
also impacts everything else.
Okay.
So the question then becomes logically, how do you do with the everything else? And
Mhm.
yes, it's the earlier start for the 3-6, and then you also have to look at, is there a better way
Mhm.
to deal with the primary grades? You could still do your 9 o'clock start in a 6.5-hour day and deal with the reality that some kids are, could be transported in the dark or maybe picked up. One of the things that the parents on the visitation found really intriguing is that in visiting Duxbury, which most people consider to be quite an affluent community, though it is within our peer group in terms of when the state looks at like towns, we are a like town with Duxbury, and also to look at East Bridgewater, that both of those districts that we visited, transportation is not free. Parents, if you want to use the bus, you pay. The other thing that we found really intriguing, when we asked about after-school activities, there are loads of activities, none of them actually run directly by the schools. And all of them are fee-based. It doesn't matter whether it's checkers or Legos or intramurals. It's all fee-based, and it's run by either rec department or some other group that comes in. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that people need to realize, because when I said to the parents, they were like, wow, can you believe that? And I said, look at what a great deal sandwich is. And then the thought was, well, like, wow, if we were willing to pay those fees, transportation or the activities, would that mean that we could take that money from the budget and put it into some of the other things that we saw and we really liked, that we like to do in Sandwich? And I said, that's a nice thought, but you also have to deal with the reality that what you may instead get would be the community saying, yeah, it's great, pay for the buses, pay for the activities, but no, you're not getting the savings to put back in the program, it's going back into the taxpayer pocket. That, there's a lot of philosophical discussion behind what's called the market and the polis model.
Yeah.
And won't get into that, but it is really very much a market idea that the more money I have and can keep, the better off I am. But the idea of community, true community, is recognizing that when we pool our resources and we work well between schools and community, we have a better chance of meeting everyone's needs. The needs of the children for quality education, the needs of senior citizens for various support services, and the needs of everyone for emergency services, police, fire, ambulance, whatever. So it was a very interesting conversation that came out of that, and again, on Monday, will be Mansfield, and I'll be here to hear,
But
what
some
your
of,
thoughts
but
and
the
perceptions
visits
were.
are to get an idea of how to
Right.
roll this out in our district, and along with that, there may be some changes.
Right, in a sense,
I think that's the
right.
message that I want.
In a sense, a lot of it
Out.
is a mix of qualitative and, yes, some quantitative data that we're collecting through these visitations. So it's bringing all of that
Yeah.
into the conversations with the RPTs. I know the Oak Ridge meeting started at 6 and it was about 2 hours.
Yeah.
So when they get into it, they're enthused.
2.5. Yeah, it was a wonderful group.
Yeah, and I'm sure the same will happen with Forestdale. And in the future, what I'd like to do is to have this, be on the agenda, but me not do the talking, instead to actually have Mark and Trish feel comfortable to come up and share. And if there's anyone else who wants to join in the conversation and have their thoughts, we can do that. I want to be sure that I keep the school committee well apprised of the work we're doing and how well we are progressing.
Questions?
That's good.
And so the final item, I asked Maureen Wickland if she could come this evening and give you a brief overview of where we are in our progress with Sandwich Learns Together. She's got some information to share with you.
It's going to take a minute because I have to reboot. I just, as I'm doing that, I just want to say that I know that when we started this, the whole idea of having a district newsletter and deciding to make it be an online magazine, a very wise person said to me, launch it as like a soft launch in the fall, that you really need to give yourself some time to consider how it's going, is it doing what you want it to do, and how are you going to reach people. And that was wise advice, because that's the important part that we're at right now, is to kind of look at how it's going so far, what we can do to make it better. It's a lot, it takes a lot of time to do it. I really enjoy it, but I want to make sure it's useful, because that's, it has a purpose. So we want to make sure it meets the purpose. So this is just kind of a little update on where we are. Our key understandings is that we created Sandwich Learns Together to have a district-wide picture of what is happening, not happening in our schools, with the idea that we want everyone in the community to know what's going on in all of the schools. It's important as we're reorganizing that families from the Wing School have a sense of what life is like at Forestdale, Forestdale to Oak Ridge, you get what I'm saying. Beyond that, we'd like families who have young children to get a broader understanding of what's happening and all the great things that are happening at the STEM Academy and at Sandwich High School, to kind of start building some anticipation and some loyalty to those schools that their families will be in down the road. Another reason for Sandwich Learns Together is to have an official information source from the Office of the Superintendent. When I met with a small group of parents and community members before we launched this, that was something that was the feedback that came from them to me, that it needed to be very clear that this was kind of the official word. Not the word on the street, the official word. And the other thing is that this is giving us an opportunity for in-depth explanations of things. And as if you've been following it, some of them are very in-depth. Dr. Canfield wrote a piece that I broke into 7 parts because he really described in great detail, well, the history of the STEM Academy, how it came to be, all of that. There was a tremendous amount of content in there, and it was all important. So it is that opportunity to not just have a glossy surface explanation, but a deep one. So here's where we are. We launched pretty much the first day of school, I guess. I talked to the staff, and since then, we have had 15,110 views. That means that's how many articles have been read. The average views each day, September was 238, October 184, November so far 162. I have a little private goal, well now it's not private because I'm saying out loud to all of these people, that we would really like to take what we did in October and double it. And so to that point, and to the point that I made earlier about the fact that this was kind of a soft launch, we're going to try to really work hard now to make more people aware of the online magazine. The most read stories, the home page and the home and archives page are the most read. That's how the statistics are given to me. I think that's reflects the fact that when you, if you have it on your iPhone or even on your computer, when you first go to the site, there's a certain amount of articles that are just right there. And particularly on your phone, the more recent articles will just show right up and you scroll down. So those are significant numbers. After that, the most popular story was one of the bus news stories. And then from Sandwich Blue Knight to Yukon Husky, the story of Tony Tully, who clearly his family and friends were proud of his article and he spread the word because we had 445 views. The other thing I'd like to point out is that one of the most popular sections on the site is the profiles of the teachers. The We Are Sandwich Public Schools. If we added all of those views together, it would probably add up to being the most read section, which makes me very happy. I think that's really cool. And the other thing that's really cool is that some of the older articles that were posted early in September are still being read. So that is clearly, some people are going to that section to read about the teachers in our schools. And I'll be beating the bushes to try to get more of those profiles, not only from new teachers, but staff members who have been here for a while. Yes, Nancy?
In a way, you kind of get hurt by those of us who subscribe to the emails, because if I get the whole article in an email, I don't bother to go
Yes,
look at it.
I know.
can see the whole thing.
I've thought of that, and I'm actually going to look into it.
You don't get credit for those.
I know. I've thought of looking into whether, but then I feel like that's, like, maybe that makes it easier for you.
It is.
Because I thought I might find out from the hosting site if it's possible to only have a paragraph and then you would have to click on it. So that I get,
Yeah.
yeah, like a teaser, yeah. So,
Although I like getting
but you're
the
right.
whole- I like getting the whole.
I
thing,
know,
you
so-
But you actually probably have more readership than.
Then we're realizing, yeah, I would agree with that. I've changed the URL. It was a long, complicated thing that had WordPress in it, and now it's simply sandwichlearnstogether.org. I've also added, you can see in the menu bar at the top, right here, I've added calendars. That's something that people look for a lot, and so if you click on, this is not live right now, so I can't click on it and show it to you, but if I were to, you would get the school calendar, and I did an annotated version that has things like the new trimesters for the K to 6 in red, and there's also a section that tells the time of the school day and late starts and early dismissals, things like that. I can add more to it if somebody has any other things. The school committee calendar is there. The curriculum council calendar is there. And the parent advisory council calendar is there. So again, if there's any other district-wide calendars, maybe we could put the RPT calendars there. It's just easier for people to find it. The other thing, the other kind of features, things that are important, is that we've really been trying to work on putting up some timely posts, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Putting up posts during the day as things are happening. When I first started doing this, it was really me collecting stuff and then working on it, you know, in the evening or on the weekend. But we have found that things have come up, like with the buses and some of the other things that have happened, where a short article is something I can easily post during the day. The other thing is I'm really trying to embed a lot of links to other sites and really add additional information. So, for example, in the STEM Academy article, there was a reference to the PBL training, the project-based learning, so I included a link to project-based learning. Sometimes I'll define things, that kind of stuff, so that if people are reading this, they can really get a full picture. And I also am able to include downloadable documents. So if there's a flyer for an event, the Pirates of the Caribbean, for example, if you go to the article about that, there's a flyer that you can download. And I can tell from when I look at my stats that a lot of people do that. We had the list of all the RPT members, that was a downloadable. So the goals are to increase readership. Another goal connected to that is to increase the subscriptions. What that means is that Sandwich Learns Together will be actively reaching out to people instead of waiting for them to come to us. So as was just pointed out, if you subscribe, you'll get the article. Either if you're subscribing in up to the minute, then you get it right as I post it. If you do, I get it both ways on different email addresses. I get one on Monday morning that has all the articles that have been posted in the past week, and you can also get it right away. And I think you can get it daily too. I don't have that many email addresses to try it out. But I would love to have more people subscribing, and because that means we're reaching them. We're kind of, they're going to be getting the information. I'd like to implement some ideas to increase readership, and I'd also like to solicit some ideas to increase readership. And to that end, I've been in touch with a few parents who have some ideas, have been involved in this kind of work before, to get some ideas to increase readership. I'd like more feedback about what people want. What are the articles? I can tell a little bit from the statistics. They want profiles of the teachers. If something like bus changes happen, they want to know about that. So that I get the information that way, but any other feedback I'd really be interested in. And another goal is to really think about Sandwich Learns Together as one communication tool in the district. We have many, but kind of as the hub. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But the idea is that this is the real solid information. It's there, and it doesn't have to just sit there. It can also go out into the community in a lot of ways. So to that end, one of the great and powerful features is that it is an online magazine. And we can link it to other articles, and the articles in the magazine can be shared via link to in other ways. So I've reached out to a lot of people who do have Facebook pages in the community and people who tweet, and asked them to spread the word. So if there's an article that's posted that they feel it would be of interest to their readership, they can tell their readership, or they can put the article there with the link so that then their readership just links. So another thing that we've learned in the past couple of months is that, as I mentioned before, we're able to post short, time-sensitive articles quickly. And those short pieces are accurate. And they're short pieces because if they're time-sensitive and there's things going on, the people who are involved aren't spending time crafting a long article. They're providing short, accurate information, but that short, accurate information can get out there to people. And then later, we can expand on that with a longer article. So the example, the canine search that took place in the school, it was announced first with Alert Now to the parents. Then both Dr. Boris and Mr. Newton sent me the text of the Alert Now, and I was able to just put that, without a lot of embellishment, just put that up on the site. And by then, the Cape Cod Times had already reported that nothing had been found. So in that short piece that I put up on the site, I had a link to the Cape Cod Times article. What takes more time sometimes is you always have to have a picture. The way this is set up, you always have to have a picture. So I had to go find a picture of a dog or something. That was, and I did, I found one.
That was the wrong dog, by the way.
No, it wasn't supposed to be. It was a stock photo of a dog. The first picture was a stock photo. But then later, Dr. Boris wrote a very lengthy and comprehensive article that really was very full of information. And it was written when she had the opportunity to do it in a reflective and comprehensive way. So then I was able to post that picture with the Sandwich police officer, and it might not have been the dog they brought, but it is one of their dogs. And And so now there were 2 articles on Sandwich Learns Together and the Alert Now, the parent, I feel like everyone was really well informed in a pretty timely way. And then all of those articles are available to pass along on social media, so that you're not asking people to explain their understandings of what happened. You have something that's solid and written and that can be passed along. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's kind of something we learned. That wasn't, I will say, that when we first started this, I wasn't thinking we would be using it for that sort of thing. But, you know, for a lot of reasons, the fact that if the people who are involved are able to just write something short and I'm able to do it during the day and get it up, I feel that that meets a need, and then the knowledge that later more information will come. And then, as I mentioned, we've been reaching out to people who have Twitter and Facebooks, asking them to repost. So then I had this other idea, and it might be goofy, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. So I decided we needed something on paper, even though this is a virtual magazine. And so I decided, because of who I am, that it was going to be bookmarks. So I made some sample ones to show you, and Joan can send them around. So I took a bunch of photos that I had of former students, and then I also took some photos of the schools and made these bookmarks that just have the email, the Sandwich Learns Together org on it, and on the back kind of invites, you'll see that when I made them today, they came off-scented, so the writing isn't very good. But it tells you how to subscribe and encourages people to subscribe. And so this is just an idea at this point. Joan and I even already had a conversation about how I can make it a little bit better tonight. But just to have something to send home to families, right? We're trying to get more people to know about this. So I think that might be kind of a neat thing to do. And the last thing, and we'll send them home in backpacks, we'll have them at school events, we'll put them at the public library, we'll put them at the Council on Aging, because we want everybody in the community to be involved. I mean, I'll put them wherever people will take them, you know what I mean? The deli. And the other thing is Cafe Chew, you know what I mean? We'll put them around town. So the final thing I just wanted to say is that we're working on, and I have a draft that I'm going to pass out to you. This is just kind of an inventory of all of the different communication channels that we actually have in Sandwich, because when I started to really reflect on it, there's a lot. And but it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around it, and what is it, and what is a good, like, what are the purposes of each of the communication channels. So I started working on this list. This is just a first draft. I really want to say that clearly. And it's meant to be just kind of an accounting, an audit, whatever, an inventory. Things, and that the next piece is to kind of analyze all of these things and say, are they, the same questions I asked people about Sandwich Learns Together. Do people know about these things? Is it meeting their needs? Should we be doing something a little differently? What I've discovered is that the different kinds of information that we have in all these different channels, some of it is for immediate time-sensitive information. So Alert Now, for example, is what we mostly use for that. A lot of what we send out into the world are announcements, and that would include the athletic department and their Twitter feed. You know, they'll announce who won the game, that kind of stuff. They'll announce, and Twitter is also used, for example, in the high school for the kids, because that's what they use to communicate. So I remember the story last spring that something had to be changed, one of the end of the year activities had to be changed. The kids managed to get the word around through Twitter. And then the other kind of information that we have is archived information that might be sent out at one time, but if you don't remember where you put it, we have it archived, and families look for that information when they need it. we might send it to them at one time and they might need it at another time. So that's where calendars, schedules, email addresses, policies, all that kind of stuff. So, any questions, thoughts about all of this? As I said, that's the first draft. It's just meant to be kind of an inventory to get us going. I have some thoughts about, and that's not very user-friendly. What would we then do with this draft, or with this list? Do we publish it? Do we take it into sections? You know, this is just the beginning of thinking about this stuff. So that's it in a nutshell. Yes?
I have a question on the questions. Did you look at how many questions you get and if they're similar in nature, you know, when people can send, you know, a question that goes to someone to be answered?
Oh, the Let's Talk?
Yeah, the Let's Talk.
That's Let's Talk.
Yeah.
You know, not formally, I've had some conversations actually with the administrators because I've been wondering if there's anything in particular I should be writing about based on Let's Talk. And one of the things they mentioned was the idea of doing a profile about our security people. And I am itching to do that. I will say I haven't gotten it done yet. That I'd love to do a profile about Jackie, who's one of our security guards, and is a terrific person. And I think, like for families, you know, would like to know who she is. So but other than that, most of the Let's Talk input has been kind of school specific and like a problem and solution type of stuff.
Are people using it though? Are you getting a lot of, or enough?
I don't know, I can't really
Yeah,
answer
I mean,
that.
To me, I would say that people are using it, but I think it's going to take time for people to really know it's there. In other words, today alone, I responded to, personally by phone, to probably 3 or 4 parents. And I also responded in email to parents and staff individually, probably, 5 or 6, that really could have come in through Let's Talk. But so I think it's just a while. To me, it's our effort through Let's Talk. For instance, part of what that system does is it allows us ultimately to look at end-of-year reports. It categorizes it, puts it in pie charts as to the nature of the topics that came in through Let's Talk, and also what kind of response time it took us to deal with it. In fact, it was interesting because initially there were a couple of cases where we dealt with it right away but forgot to close it out. So it looked like it took us 3 weeks
and there was also a couple of practice ones that we did.
Yeah. So I believe, because the idea was to really work to reduce our response time. So I would say it still has very good potential, but it's a matter of trying to encourage people to, in other words, just as we're talking about making them familiar with this through things like the bookmarks, and I'm not saying we'll have Let's Talk bookmarks, but it's really suggesting to people that there is a better way to let us know, particularly if the concerns are more broadly of interest than they might be of an individual parent, wanting to know about a particular course and why it's offered in the way it is, or something of that sort. But I think we're doing a pretty good job of responding promptly to people.
I just wondered if it was being used as much, or however you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, probably not as much as we thought,
Right.
in a way.
Right.
Because people are accustomed to writing emails and making phone calls and having that work. So it's not really a motivation if.
Right.
Yeah.
If they're already being able to get the answers that they need, they're
Right.
not going somewhere else.
Yeah.
To try and figure out how to
But we
get
can
hold
try
of it.
to bump that up too. But not.
Just unplug all the phones.
Don't answer them any other way.
You're very funny.
Just kidding.
Aside from the irony of giving up bookmarks for a digital magazine.
I'm aware of that, I know that. I'm trying to meet
It's some sort of
everybody where they are.
Shakespearean literary device to give a bookmark for digital magazine. I do want to comment that the tools for families and members of the community to communicate with the administration of Sandwich School District is much more robust than it was even a year ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're moving in the right direction. You got to be at least 180 right now, because I just scanned through like 3 or 4 different articles, so
Yeah.
helping out your cause.
But
But,
yeah.
yeah,
out 3 times.
the communication tools are much more robust than they were even a year ago. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, you still got to reach out and touch people, and that's the telephone.
Right.
So, I mean, that's always going to be there, one way or another, so. Anything else, Jim?
Just a follow-up question, something with the bookmarks. Do we have to be concerned with, using these photos and having
Yeah, I will,
authorization or?
yes. So, the pictures of children that are there are all kids that I taught when they were in 3rd grade. And I happen to have this great set of photos. So like the little girl that's on our cover sheet,
Exactly,
that's one of
yeah, the
those
same
kids.
concern.
So before we did that with her, I checked not only with her mom, but I checked with her, because she's a senior in high
Sure.
school now. So one of the students on there, I've been in touch with the mom, and she checked with her son, and the other ones I haven't. That's why this is just a rough draft, these aren't to be passed
No,
out or anything.
obviously.
But they're all families that I know, I could connect with easily enough. But the other thing we talked about, Joan and I talked about, is that they're all 3rd graders. And so we might not want that. We might want kids of other ages. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's kind of like one little group. And so maybe I'll do more and use some stock photos, or maybe do more with the pictures of the school buildings or something like that. I guess I am well aware that there's an irony of it being.
I knew you were.
But on the other hand, again, we're trying to reach people in all of the possible ways to reach them. It was suggested to me, and I, honestly, if I had thought of it, I would have done it, is during soccer season, I should have been down on the soccer fields talking to people or putting up signs, or, you know what I mean? Like you gotta go to the people where they are.
You could throw a QR code on it, too.
That would be very techy.
That's a good one.
My wife's the brains in the family, so.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
At the beginning of the school year, do parents still fill out forms for like emergency contact information, email addresses, do they put them on there?
Yes, and in
So is
fact-
there a way to incorporate that so you can send them?
Well,
out?
and that's the other thing,
An
we can
invite?
I can ask the principals to send maybe an alert now email with the link in it.
Yeah,
So that would be a digital way.
to invite them to
Right.
sign up.
Right,
So that they know.
but I was
it's
gonna
there.
do both.
I still read books.
We've also added it to our newsletters, and we send those
Yeah.
out once. We use the Alert Now system to send that out, because all of our newsletters are digital too, so we send the link to our newsletter out with the Alert Now. And in our newsletter, the last 2 months, we've been
Yes.
putting it in there, don't forget to go check.
And I can tell when they've gotten their newsletter from the school, because I can see an increase, and also it tells me if somebody's come through another source, it will say so.
Oh, that's great.
It also shows me like the links that I put in if someone clicked on it. So like, if I put in a link to somebody else's blog, I can see that they clicked on it. It's cool.
Other comments or questions?
Is there any way to get revenue from?
Some advertising out there,
It's kind of like a free mammogram for every click you get.
Imagine that. I don't know.
Advertising space, perhaps?
Local businesses in town.
Actually, it's funny that you say that, because the hosting site is WordPress, and I actually paid to have a no-ad version of WordPress, because otherwise they would be putting their ads on.
Oh, I see, yeah.
That's-
And then that's just constant pop-ups.
Right, that's just not right.
No.
That's not what we want.
No, it's-
All right, any other questions?
I think it's fabulous.
It's great.
It's like my new hobby. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to liaison advisory committee reports.